completely round it.
Very clever.
The thing about art is you could literally do anything you want. So, I mean, you could have just taken the whole thing off and torn it up and put it in a toilet or something and then photographed it. That's art, isn't it? That's a portrait of Greg. So I was kind of aware that I just wouldn't be able to do the task because they expected you to do it. And I was really impressed by the people that actually did have a go at it and did get something that looked like a face.
Well, I thought yours was very, very clever because you're right. It's a really difficult thing to do, and you still did the portrait because there was one of the squares was a picture of Greg, so there was still that central thing, and then surrounded by things that you thought that Greg might like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chip, just the word chip, not even a picture of it.
Exactly. Well, I remember thinking about that and thinking they'll just look like tampons or something. Sorry, back to periods again. But I'm so terrible at drawing, so, you know, I just thought,
Well, you did draw a nuclear power station, which did look like a tampon.
Oh, that is true. That is true. So I got one in somewhere. Yeah, I know. Well,
I thought it was a really smart way of doing it. Probably at the time when it came up in the studio, I was probably
pissed off. Yeah,
I hadn't thought of it, and then I probably did argue with you about it, and they cut it out in the end.
You were an artist.
Yeah. Little bulldog in the studio.
And I was a massive kind of capitulator. Oh, give me less points if you want. I don't care. You know. So yeah, they're very different.
Well, Greg
approach.
respects that attitude more, I think, is the not caring about points or just accepting it, as opposed to people like me who like constantly. But they did this, and they said in the task that I had to do this.
Did you ever actually change his mind?
No, never. You can't change his mind. You can't change that guy's mind. But great portrait from you. I mean, it's so funny that even in episode 2, we know that David's going to be bottom because.
All right, Tom.
Great, even the way Alex introduces David's portrait is by going, "Should we get David?" People have just given up on him straight away, but correct to in this case because he comes and looks at the task and says, "This is some Sudoku bullshit, is it?" And then he gets an aprons and paints, gets so much stuff, constantly sending Alex back and forth to do stuff, and then the portrait is the weirdest and worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting about Dave because he's so clever, you know, and yet somehow, is it like common sense or something has been edged out by having a big brain of cleverness. And yeah, he did that a few times, well, a lot of times, I think.
Most times.
Yeah, most times. And I helped if we were doing stuff together. I made it worse. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's because none of the tasks are sit down for the next 6 months and write an important book. And
no,
so if that was one of the tasks, you know, 5 points to David Baddiel, I'm sure. But if it's anything practical, anything we have to put together, some artwork, it's all going to be a disaster.
What an exciting taskmaster that would be if it was sit down for the next 6 months and write an important book. And we'll be back to you in July. Yeah.
Got a lot of that. There was things that, like, he did a bit of a ball bag. He started on the top, on one of the squares, there was a complete hairstyle. And then on another one, there was a bit of a hairstyle. And the two left halves of the face. I don't know what he was doing. He had no technique or tactics for it whatsoever, did he?
No, he didn't, but he could have styled that out as a different form of art. But he didn't even bother once he saw it, I don't think.
Well, I think he said it would win the Turner Prize, but I don't know. I think you said before that anything can be art. You could just tear it up and put it in a toilet. I think we found the one thing that can't be art.
Yeah.
Toilet one would have beat David's. Rose's great, I thought.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Really good job, and you know, the barbed wire hair, sure, but it definitely had the essence of Greg, and she'd obviously come up with a good way of doing it. But the thing with Rose is she always looks so unconfident about anything she does, so whenever anything pops up, she looks like she's lost already.
Yeah, it's very endearing, actually. I mean, I think that is Rose. It's not that Rose is actually really massively confident that she's just hiding it. I think she really it is, you know, and I find that a really sort of attractive characteristic when someone's like that. I mean, some people would say, oh God, it's so bloody annoying because they know they're brilliant and why are they pretending not to be? But I genuinely think she isn't. She, you know.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, I totally agree. And she's brilliant, though. I mean, the amount of things she's done, stand-up awards, brilliant sort of concerts and stuff like that. You know, I'd imagine she sits at the screenings of her successful multi-series sitcoms with her head in her hand.
Oh, absolutely, me too, definitely.
But in Taskmaster, I think that can cost you points sometimes. Because I think if you show that weakness in front of Greg, he'll pounce, or he'll use it in the process.
Yeah, that's the side of him I don't find that palatable.
Now, Katie, no, let's talk about that, because I got 3 points as well for Rose. I was very proud of this show.
Were you, Ed? I'm glad.
Because I thought it was going to be terrible, and I liked my technique. I thought it was good, because on the little grid, I sketched it out on the little grid, so then I had a reference for when I was doing the rest of the drawing, so I knew what had to go on what square. And it just about matched up. There was a face, there was a plane in the background, there was a dog.
Oh yeah, the plane was a bit weird.
Always because they was in the park.
Fair dues. Okay.
It was a bit weird. I was just trying to add something to the background. But I think Greg took exception to the fact that he had quite an evil smile and then also gave him red eyes. I can't remember why I gave him red eyes, but he did look evil.
No, but I think sort of evil was a sort of theme running through his judging on numerous occasions. So I thought that was appropriate myself.
Yeah, but evil people don't like to be confronted with their own sin.
No, they don't. That's true. And you can tell, actually, Greg, that if you imply in any way that there's evil lurking there, no, he doesn't like that at all.
So, so it was 3 points. I thought I deserved more for this, but look, there we go. In the studio, I think I was quite quiet about that, but you got 4 points, so it was a very clever thing to do. Now, Katie got the 5 points. I understand that it captures the energy of Greg, but the task dictated that you had to do all these pages and they were going to be flipped round. So I thought the main part of the task was making sure it all matched up. I don't think Katie's matched up enough to get the 5 points. It was a bit higgledy-piggledy, there were some things the wrong way round, and although you could sense that it was Greg, I don't feel like it was better than, say, Mike, for example.
No, and that's what I love about you, Ed. Your kind of confidence in being better than other people, because that is total anathema to me. I'm one of those people that is annoyingly kind of like, oh no, I can't do that. Oh no, I don't think that's very good. That's very well. So I kind of envy you in a way. Because I'd like to be like that. And I mean, you're very lucky. I shouldn't really flatter you, but you're lucky because you're likeable, but you are enormously competitive. And when someone's enormously competitive, I normally hate them and they irritate me. But with you, we had such a laugh. It didn't even kind of occur to me, you know. And I also thought you sort of added something to it called energy. Which certainly Dave and I were very lacking in, and also Katie's quite languid on occasions as well. So the only other sort of ball of energy was Rose, and I think female energy is very different from male.
Yes.
So basically, you could really have been like someone's really annoying little brother who keeps kind of like, you know, tugging at you, going, look, I've done that better than you, I've done that better than you. And in the end, you have to sort of stab them with a biro or something. But no, it was endearing. And I'm glad that someone, you know, just showed a will to win, because after all, it is a competition.
Yes,
It's like annoying if someone's like, oh, fuck it, I don't care, let's have a cup of tea, which is a bit like, I was a bit like that. Dave was a bit like...
I mean, you were literally, but you were both literally like that in one of
Yes, well, we literally were, yeah, absolutely. I love that task so much.
Yeah, I think I am very competitive, and I can be an annoying little brother, especially on this show, but I think I'm blessed with self-awareness, so I know how annoying I am and how annoying it can be. So hopefully I know when to rein it in, the key.
No, absolutely, because my little brother was really annoying,
Yeah.
you know, because not only did he absolutely crow from the rafters if he won something, you know, he wasn't sympathetic if you lost. And on many occasions, I assaulted him with or without an implement. I remember one day I hit him with a tennis racket, which wasn't a very nice thing to do when he was 9, I think. But you know, you never gave me that feeling. I never wanted to try and assault you. So you know, that's good.
We had all the tennis rackets removed from the studio just in case.
Good. Glad to hear it.
But Katie's probably one of the more artistic ones, and it definitely
Yeah.
has an essence of Greg. So I think he was flattered by it as well. I think it was a sort of dark, brooding, sort of sexy version of Greg.
But you still think you should have won?
Yes.
I do.
No, I think you should have won actually, because I think you had the smartest way of doing it. I think it's too late now.
Yeah, it's true.
And I got the 3 points. It was 1 point for David, 3 points for me and Rose, 4 points for you, Joe, and 5 points for Katie. We get David out of the way. Good job. Terrible thing to say. This is how it looked when we laid it out according to the grid.
That is some kind of Sudoku bullshit.
I'm going to give that no points, but it's going to win the return of prize.
Okay.
Do you know what? There comes a point where we have to get practical advice.
Task 3. This is the task that we both love. The first team task. Complete this adventure. Unless otherwise stated, you must stick together and only open one task after you've completed the previous one. Fastest wins. Now either look in the toaster or go to the shed. So, the task we eventually found out was whoever said the word demeaning,
Yeah.
point in the task wins. Now, no one accidentally said the word demeaning, which I'd imagine they were hoping for someone to just plop out the word demeaning and then win the task without realising.
Wouldn't that have been brilliant?
It would have been good, but unfortunately what happened was both teams went through the full rigmarole of doing a lot of tasks and really taking our time with it.
What you looking
now,
for?
obviously, we didn't know who was going to be on teams with until we arrived that day. Did you have a sense that they might put you with David?
I had a suspicion they might do. You know, just to sort of double up the old ducker effect, because you know I think together we are more than the sum of our parts. So we were like 3 old people really when we got together. But I must say, because I know we started on the circuit together at the same time, so we've known each other absolutely years, and we are good mates, and we've been on holidays with our kids and everything. So it was just nice to have someone that I knew really well.
Yeah.
And I kind of sensed as well that he was sort of thinking along the same lines as me, i.e. get a sit down and something to drink whenever you can and savour it.
You definitely matched energies well, and that was clear in this task. What would your reaction have been like if you'd been on, say, a team with me and Rose, and that task starts and we're like tearing off and doing it at the speed we were doing it? How would you have reacted to that?
Well, I would have hoped you might put me to bed first and think to yourselves, we're going to do better as a 2 than if we drag her along with us. Well, you know, I suppose I would have tried to keep up, and I would have really enjoyed it. But actually, it was so ironic, wasn't it, when you looked at the timing? You 3 seemed to be like rushing around.
Yeah.
Like you know, it was wearing just to watch you, really.
Yeah.
And yet, actually, it took you a shorter time.
Yeah, just
than
about.
Well, just about, but it still did, considering all the things you did. And me and Dave basically did very, very little.
I remember watching this in the studio, and they cut back to the studio a few times, and we're crying with laughter.
Yeah.
Because you and David doing this is just outstanding. Getting to the kitchen and having to make the sandwich. The comparison of the two teams making the sandwich with us, it was get a banana, squash it into the bread, take a bite and go.
And ran, yeah.
Yeah, you spent so long going through all the ingredients in the fridge. Cheese, oh yeah, I like a bit of cheese. Cocktail sausages, oh yeah, no, I like cocktail sausages. A bit of mustard, yeah. And then you put the butter in the microwave to soften it up, of course. And then had a cup of tea with it as well, which wasn't part of the task.
No. Well, you know, I think that our sense of competition had sort of dribbled away within about 2 seconds of that task. And as soon as we got in the kitchen, we were like, "Yeah, come on." You know, well, we could have cooked a breakfast really, and I don't think we're doing that. And that's because I think what happened was that Dave didn't realise, did he, that it was as fast as you can?
No,
or we thought it was.
Yeah.
And I think I said at the time I did realise, but I didn't care.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You know, we were kind of a good team from that point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you ended up, I mean, the great thing about the task is even if you're fast, you might not win, because if you pick the wrong envelopes that get you stuck in a loop, then there's sort of no way out of it. So we were stuck in that loop for ages. We did 24 different tasks compared to your 9.
Yeah,
so,
amazing.
Yeah, you had a good sort of envelope selection and ended up picking the thing off under the mat and saying demeaning pretty quickly, really. But if you'd done 9 tasks at a lick, then you would have probably done it in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, just as well we didn't, man.
Yeah, yeah, good for us.
Yeah.
And we messed up so much. I mean, the thing on Rose's head fell off. And then we had to sit on the bench for 3 minutes singing the Taskmaster theme tune. So the next time we put something on Rose's head, we sellotaped it on there. It was just a disaster. We were making such a mess, but having a great time. Yeah, I was so happy to be on a team with those two. Because I know Rose very well, and I've known Katie for a long time as well. So the fact it was those two, I thought, right, we're gonna attack this. Our only agenda here is to do the task.
And also, actually, you know, the end result sort of challenges the tortoise and the hare story, doesn't it?
It does.
We were the tortoise, and we came last. Well, second. Yeah, so it doesn't always work out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The hare won on this occasion. Mind you, the tortoise, I think the thing about the tortoise and the hare is the tortoise just does the race slow and steady. Whereas if it was a good analogy, then I think the tortoise would stop for a sandwich and a cup of tea, and then the hare would definitely you two did it in 36 minutes 26 seconds, and we did it in 29 minutes. And the map they put up of our movements, the side by side comparison of where we went in the house. There's a bit where you end up in the Taskmaster house, and then while we're literally just zipping all over the map, it just stops. You're stopped for ages.
Well, you know, old people have to save energy, or else we wouldn't have got through the day. I think that's what it was about to a certain extent. But,
you seem to relish that, though, the being in the older team and taking your time and stuff. You're like, yeah, fuck it, that's what I do. David always seemed to take that as a bitter pill to swallow. So when he comments, he goes, "Did you put the old Funny Ducky music under us?" I'm like, yes, dude.
I know, he kind of resents, and in some ways rightly so, you know, being dragged into the world of the elderly and infirm, whereas I positively embrace it. And, you know, I think my thing was, like, I'm not, if we're competing on a physical level, which we were sometimes as a group, I'm not going to get anywhere, so I'm just going to piss about.
Yeah.
That was my approach, really. Whereas I think with Dave, he's like really ambivalent about it, because he realised that, you know, he wasn't the sort of bright, fast young thing that you younger ones were, but he still really resented it and wanted to win, probably, because he's much more competitive than I am. So
yeah, I mean, I think that probably faded away by the end of this episode. I think he probably realised that it wasn't going to be his for the taking. It would be remiss of us to not mention one of my favourite moments in the whole series, when you and David are asked to whisper a word that begins with D and ends in G, and you whispered Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. What went wrong there?
What went wrong? Because it's not one word. It doesn't begin with D or end in G. Why was that at the forefront of your mind? Guantanamo Bay.
Do you know what? I really don't know. And this has worried me in my comedy for quite a long time now. Which is sometimes I don't really know what this is about, but take it back to Freud, maybe call it a Freudian slippage sort of thing. And I do this quite a lot. And when you're a performer on stage and you're meant to be saying sensible things, I occasionally just, a word comes out, and I think, honest, where did that come from? And it's like totally inappropriate. And I think that was a mixture of being slightly, that starting to happen, and me going, oh, Guantanamo Bay. People will think I'm mad, and I am a bit, because I don't know why I said that. Yeah,
well,
really weird.
It's one of the great gifts, the Taskmaster gifts. There's Guantanamo Bay, and of course, that when you're doing the serenade to yourself, I'm moist is one that pops up on Twitter, which is fantastic.
Well, you know, it means something very different to the generations, doesn't it? Because, yes, indeed. My daughter used to say it perfectly serious to me. Oh God, you're so moist. Yeah. And I was like, oh,
Would you say that serenade to me, if someone said, tell me some things that Joe did on Taskmaster, that would definitely be up there. Would that be one of your highlights? Do you have any other highlights, particularly from the series, that you love doing?
Well, I did, yeah, and funnily enough, because I can't sing to save my life, I actually really enjoyed sitting in the car and singing Jerusalem.
Yeah.
You know, because it was just such a stupid way to do it.
That was brilliant as well, because that seemed to sometimes, which is what's good about Taskmaster, your tactic a lot of the time was, what's the way I can do this with expending the least energy and not throwing my all into this, finding ways around it. But that worked on that one. So it's singing Jerusalem, but I'm going to be in the cab on the way back, and then I can just sing it down the phone, and it was perfect.
And also produced a perfectly cooked egg. How did that happen?
It was brilliant.
Because quite honestly, I had no idea that was going to happen. I was absolutely delighted, because it made me look like...
It's sale day! Okay, we're throwing this stuff out with...
And I'm sure there are people out there who now use that tactic, that boil eggs and sing Jerusalem.
I would really like to think that. I think that would be so brilliant if they did.
Well, get in contact with us if you do ever use the Jerusalem egg boarding technique.
Couldn't put an action score on it. The real Marigold Hotel. Just stop some fucking sandwich. You didn't say that. Kick back and enjoy it. What's up, the good old days? I mean, the whole point is to say the word demean. The word humanly amputate means humiliating or demeaning. Linking into D and G. Putting a colander on your head, we thought you might say something quite different. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought the whole point of the task was to, in the most sinister way possible, whisper Guantanamo.
Let's talk about the live task. The live task is in 2 parts. Make a lovely little ball arrangement. You have 100 seconds. Part 2 was flatten all the yellow balls, throw all of the red balls into a bucket, and turn all the blue balls into one big blue ball. Most balls in the right shape are placed up 100 seconds wins, and of course you're blindfolded for that. Now this is another one of those ones, Joe, where your sort of slightly lackadaisical approach to the task really paid off for you.
I really lapped out.
It was brilliant. You arranged them all into... It was the perfect ball arrangement. It was literally, you'd arrange them all into the word ball, but also by colour. And then you knew exactly where the colours were, you just did exactly what you had to.
To be honest, Ed, not always a given at my age. Because, you know, like, your short-term memory tends to falter a bit as you get older.
Right.
And the worst thing in the world would be if I'd done that and I'd forgotten which colour which letters were. And it was very possible that that might happen. But thankfully I didn't. So I just couldn't believe that it happened. It was brilliant. I was so delighted.
It was a real stroke of luck, and yeah, you did very, very well there. Whereas obviously the rest of it kind of amazing arrangements, things against the whole task, that's obviously the task. And then we're in trouble then. David's the most in trouble when it's announced he has the bucket, and you realise all the things are piled on top of the bucket. Just every week.
I think,
like that for David.
Those two passes are great, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Because it's like, on a huge high, I've done brilliantly.
Yeah, the fact I've done brilliantly just means I'm going to do way worse now. Because David he planned the whole sketch, the sort of Ferrero Rocher lasting thing. And that's what made it terribly in the end. You've got 12% of the balls in the right place. Rose went with a good tactic, I thought, putting all of it in the bucket, so she's guaranteed 30%.
Yeah, that is a good tactic, absolutely.
But I can't believe, I think, because maybe me and Katie were both doing getting the audience to shout out which ones we were holding, which, you know, it's not before you use the audience, but it was still confusing because they were shouting colours for everyone, so I had absolutely no idea what colour was. But I remember being so panicked with some of these live tasks, because that's when the pressure really got me, I think. When it's just filming in a house with the crew, I think it's a bit fun. You're like, I can do anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I can see the
absolutely.
result of this for a while. But when you're in front of that audience, having to do those tasks, I choke more often than not.
No, it's quite hard. And for me, anything physical, which involves aiming something or throwing something and getting it in a particular area, always far too enthusiastic at that. I mean, you were asking me a little while ago what's my favourite task. I tell you, my least favourite one that I was most ashamed of was where we had chickpeas and we had to make them into something. Yeah. And I think that I put like a little gap between my teeth, so I made it into a full tooth. And I thought, and it took like 2 seconds. And what I thought after, that was so pathetic that I didn't have any more imagination than that. And it didn't work either, because it just all disintegrated. And I think that was when I thought, you know, if you're doing Taskmaster, maybe try and think about something for longer than 0.007 of a second before you do it.
Yeah, I think especially with that task, to do something absurd with that chickpea, right? And I think we had half an hour or an hour to do it.
Well, exactly. Yours, I remember, I think yours won it, and it was really good, whatever it was. It was some sort of...
I went on a date with the chickpea, and then the chickpea got run over, and then I slept at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I think Rose's might have won, actually, or maybe it was a joint thing, because Rose did the funeral for the chickpea, which was equally absurd and amazingly shot, very well conceived. So yeah, I think it's when those tasks you have half an hour or an hour, then you know the sort of thing they might be expecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the things though, I think Katie might have done fingernails or something, so she did like painted little chickpea nails, which is very funny. But in this task, the live task, David only got 12% of the balls in the right place, which I think is less than you would get if anyone else just did it randomly.
Absolutely. Oh, God bless him. I mean, it did make him very lovable, don't you think?
Of course. Look, we love David. We absolutely love David. But, yeah, it had an ugly start. Rose got 33% for the bucket technique. Myself and Katie both got 45% in there and took the 4 points. And you, Joe, almost 100%, is what they said. Pretty much all of them in the right place. 5 points.
Let me tell you, Ed, that so rarely happens to me. that task and the horse or laminator one were just like some weird, you know, wrinkles in time for me. Because I'm like not a winner of things really. I don't win things or come first ever, and I'm always happy to slog about at the back, kind of gurning and looking sort of comedy pissed off, which I never am really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was absolutely delighted by my luck in that one, I must say.
That was fantastic. You loved it. And of course, the final scores. David at the bottom with 10 points, oh dear.
God bless him.
You and Rose came joint with 15 points, then Katie on 18 points, and I took home the victory in this episode, 19 points. I was very relieved to get an episode win under my belt very early.
Were you thinking sort of at this point, now I'm getting the measure of it, I'm kind of in with a chance here? Or...
Maybe, but then you never know what tasks are going to come up next, do you? So I knew I'd screwed a fair few up with the film tasks, but then I knew there were some really good ones to come as well. So you just never know. I knew that Katie and Rose were both pretty good, and would be doing well throughout the rest of the series. And then you're obviously very good at the live task there. And David, it's fine. I knew he was going to come bottom immediately.
Oh.
Well, that's great. It's just nice to have a wicked boy every episode.
No, totally.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm in the lead in the series. 35. Rose is on 32. Katie's on 30. So it's pretty tight at the top. And then you're on 27. David's on 24 points. But it's only 2 episodes in. We were still unsure about what was going to happen. But also, I remember being so sad that was the first day over in the studio, right? So we did 2 episodes on that first day. And I just remember being really sad that there were only 4 days left. I was like, I just want to do this for the rest of the year.
No, I know, and I absolutely loved it as well. Because actually, it's such a great thing to do with a group of people that you kind of all get on with, and we all got on with each other. We took the piss out of Dave a bit, God bless him, and me too, because I deserved it. But we were just a nice kind of group of people. I can't imagine doing something like that if you didn't get on with everyone.
Oh, it would be hell, yeah.
It'd be awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, I remember having a lovely time in the studio. Really looking forward to going to do it. But remember, it was your birthday one day as well, and there was a big cake that said "Old Woman Birthday" on it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well.
Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast, Joe.
Not at all, Ed. It's great to see you again.
We always ask our guests to rate their experience on the podcast between 1 and 5 points in the style of the Taskmaster. This is, of course, your second time on the podcast. I don't know what points you gave it last time, but feel free to just go with your heart. Between 1 and 5 points.
I think going with my heart, I'm going to give it 5.
Yeah, thank you.
So, there you go. No, it's nice to remember.